I'm not working here.
Anybody online?
No. I'm recording. Hi, it is 6. I am going to call to order the Danville School Board Director June meeting. This is Tuesday, June 4th, 6 o'clock. My name is Clayton Fargill, job board chair. We're going to introduce ourselves around the room before we get started. Next to me is Eric Hewitt, board member. And Stan Morton, board member. And Dave Hill will be joining us shortly. Mark Tucker, superintendent.
Yeah, with my secretary principal.
Thank you.
Sarah Welch, elementary principal.
Thank you both. We have some guests coming up in a minute. Before we move to the guests, are there any additions or changes to this agenda? Anybody have anything they wanted to add? Hearing none, I'll move on. We wanted to start this session with some senior student project presentations and some good ones. And so I'm going to turn it over to Natalie.
Yeah, so we have Andy McReynolds with us first up. He did a great job with his presentation at, you can come sit at the table too. Great job with his presentation at senior night when we had our community event. Kids were presenting, he worked really well. Rachel Keach, our flexible pathways coordinator, and has a lovely presentation here for us as well. Thanks for coming in, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm ready to share.
I think if you could be
There we go.
Okay, go back one slide.
Where is it one before that?
yeah.
Good title slide.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I don't know how to move it.
There we go.
I think the space. Do you have effects in yours?
Yeah,
I think you use the space bar.
Okay. So for my senior project, I did the Pope Cemetery project. Originally it started out with just the fence, but now it's kind of snowballed into gates and driveways up in, and just kind of renovating the whole thing. So next slide, please. So I'd like to start off with dedicating my senior project to Wendy Summers. Before she passed, she really helped me get everything for this project off the ground. She was a former town clerk, sexton. She had a ton of roles, and she helped me get all the permits, all the permissions, and all that stuff ready to go. And she had my kind of vision for the cemetery the whole time, and she was loving it. And yeah. Next slide, please. So the beginning. So I started this project, or I kind of had the idea of this project back this past summer, is last July. I was at my grandfather's funeral up there in the cemetery, and that's when I really realized how run down everything really was and how rough everything really was. And I knew something had to be done about it. And so that's when I decided to make a great senior project. So then that next fall when school started, I went to Miss Keach to ask her if I could do that for my senior project. She loved the idea. And then I went out to the town clerk's office and I talked to Wendy. Wendy got me all the permissions, all that stuff, all lined up and ready to go, and we got the ball rolling on that. So then I started preparation. I believe it was October 31st, when everything was finally all set to go and ready. So I started with a fence on the backside that was definitely the worst. I started pulling the old wood staples out of it. It's like a chicken wire fence. So I kind of pulled all the wood staples off, peeled the fence back off all the posts, and then I started pulling out the posts with our skid steer and a chain. And then once all the posts and everything was cleared out of there, barbed wire, everything, I went through with that bush hogged all the grass that was still standing, and there's couple little trees and everything that I bush hogged and kind of cleaned up. And then once that was bush hogged, I took the skid steer with a stone bucket and I leveled everything to make a nice line up through the new fence row. And then, so for the materials for this, I'd gone out to Kingdom Gravel and Aggregate out at Burt's Quarry there, and they ended up donating in the end. It was roughly 5 tons of 3/4-inch drain stone that I put around every single fence post. And my cousin actually has a dump trailer, and he was nice enough to donate all the trucking, so it saved me quite a big chunk of change for that much gravel or stones. And so I got all that stuff to the farm, all the gravel. We had an empty bin that we stored it in, and then the split rail fence was donated at cost from Larrabee. So pretty much they essentially didn't make any money off of the fence. It was just what it cost them to get it to the store, and they sold it to me for that. And that came out to roughly just over $3,200. So we started drilling holes. I believe it was November 11th when we started finally running poles or rails and everything. So to start off, I took 2 fiberglass fence posts. I put one at one end and one at the other end of the line that I was going to make for fence row, and then ran a string on it, so we had a nice straight line to go by. And then from there, we had we have a postal digger at the farm, and my dad helped me drill the holes, so I backed him into the string roughly where it was, and he drilled down. It was roughly 2.5 feet or so, and then we'd straighten everything up, put the post down in, then we'd level it back and forth to make sure it was just right, um, and made sure everything was flush with the string. And then once we had that just about right, we'd put the rails into it and start filling stone in around the post and packing it down with like a wooden stake that we had, just to make sure everything was nice and tight and the post wasn't going to move anywhere. We put stone around it, just hoping that would help stop rotting and whatnot, like down at the base, so everything's just stone up through. So we're hoping that'll help, but also help with frost, not pushing it out. But we'll see after next winter about that. So then the entrance gate. So I originally was just going to do the fence around the backside, and then when Wendy had seen what I'd done on the backside, she asked if I could finish the whole cemetery all the way around. And so I'm taking a welding fabrication class at LI, or actually that ended last week. But so that's when I decided I'd do new gates and the fence around the front. So these are the gates that I'd come up with. I wanted to incorporate some sort of farm scene into it because I knew there's a lot of old farmers that are buried there, but also it's right on. There's some nice big grass fields behind it and a farm just down the road, maybe 200 yards. So I really wanted to incorporate that into it. So we had a plasma art cutter at LI that I was able to use to cut out that little design with. And I cut out the Pope Cemetery to run across the top rail there. They're currently drying with paint right now in my uncle's shop. So hopefully tomorrow they'll be hanging and ready to go. And yep. So then for fundraisers for this, so I'd gone out in September when I was talking to Wendy, and asked her what was available in the town cemetery fund. She said, to be honest with you, there's really not too much. Like, we don't have much available. I said, that's fine. I said, I'll try and do some fundraising to pay for all the costs or see what I can come up with. Then she said that whatever I didn't fundraise, that she would try and come up with the money to pay me back for the rest of it. And so that's why I decided I was going to do some bake sales at town meeting. So I did a bake sale at town meeting, and then the day after I sold the rest of it at Marty's. And with the bake sales, it came out to, I believe, $1,500 or so. But then I also made a Facebook post for donations from the community. So I posted what I was doing, and then I was accepting donations. And so I actually got a ton of donations from community members, which was awesome to see. So then a little history of the Pope Cemetery. So the guy that lives down the road, I got kind of interested in just walking around reading some of the old headstones in there. And I went out to the Town Historical Society too and read up on it. And so the oldest grave in there, the oldest person that had passed away in there was 1803, they passed away. And then the oldest person in there was actually born in 1746. And they served in the Revolutionary War. And then I got talking to the old guy down the road that owns all the land behind it, the grass fields behind it. And he said there's actually a person from every single war, starting with the Revolutionary War, buried in that cemetery, which is pretty cool.
What's that man's name?
Huh?
What's that man's name?
Terry Clifford. So he was telling me about that. He kind of gave me a little brief history. So Pope Cemetery, I've grown up right around there. And I never known a Pope to live around in the area, so I didn't really know where the name came from. There's also a Pope Brook and a Pope Brook Road, and so there's a lot of Pope here. And he was saying that back before the Civil War, the farm that's just down the road there actually used to raise cavalry horses for the war. And Clifford that used to work there is his great-great-grandfather, I believe. Used to work there with a John Pope, and this is where the Pope comes from. So he used to be owned by popes long before that. And so they raised cavalry horses. He worked for them, and he ended up, when he came back from war, he served in the Civil War. I believe his name was, I think it was an Adam Clifford or something. And he served in the Civil War, and then after he come back from war, John Pope, he didn't have any kids or anything to take over the farm, so he was invited back to kind of live with John Pope, and then he eventually, once John passed away, he had the farm given to him, and so which is pretty cool, kind of neat to learn about. So that's
Is there
how
a connection between those popes and like Pope Library?
I'm assuming so, because it sounds like they had a pretty good chunk of land right up through North Danville end. So I'm assuming it's the same Pope family that dates way back. But there's also a lot of names, like there's like Morrill Road and all kinds of other names I recognize from around that are also buried in that cemetery that are come back from long, long ago, which is pretty cool. So then this is like my budget. So bake sale raised $1,559.50 between the 2 days, that day and next morning out to Marty's. In donations, like monetary donations for people, I raised $3,020 for a grand total of $4,579.50. So now expenses, the fencing materials, that was $3,276. And so now the rest of that money is going back to the town. It's not quite 1,303, just because I had to spend, I believe it's like $60 on stuff for the gates between paint and hanging brackets and stuff for that. But I also want to put in, I forgot to add in for donations, the town of Danville actually donated a load of gravel for the driveways that go up in. I put new driveways in there as well. And then also Linden Institute, I donated all the metal for the gates. So that was a huge help because metal is not cheap these days.
No, it's not.
So that was a huge help there with them. So these are some pictures of cleanup kind of before. So that's the top center one is the metal fence that used to run around the front before. That was put in eons ago. It was definitely an old fence at the bottom of it. There's a lot of stakes and they're just covered in concrete at the bottom, which made a nice mess when I tried pulling them up. That was a headache, but that's so the two middle pictures there, the metal fence in the back, one of the fence posts of the old fence used to run around along the backside of the field. And then, so these are setting some posts and telephone poles. So I set 4 telephone poles, 2 at each entrance way to hang the gate songs. I want something that's stereo that's going to last a long time. And Craig Vance was nice enough to donate 2 telephone poles that I cut in half to make the 4 posts. And so they're buried roughly 4 feet deep or so as far as that auger could go down. And so they're buried and packed with stone right in. So hopefully they'll be there for quite a few more years to come. So then were some of the pictures of the new fence I put up. There's the stone. You can see the stone around that fence post down there. That's what all of them look like. That's just a little stretch of fence there on the left. And then digging the holes on the bottom right there. And then so these are kind of some of the end results after I'd done dirt work. So now there is hay over top most of it where I had raked out. I seeded down new grass. I brought in some town fill to put underneath the post to level everything up with the field and the lawn just to make everything nice and smooth and easier to lawn mow. So I raked that all out, got all the stones out of that fill, and then put grass seed down and put hay over top of everything to hold and help everything come up faster. And then that's kind of almost the same exact spot before and after. It's slightly off, but that's roughly what I was working with on the right and what the end result is on the left. So, yeah. Any questions?
No, I appreciate it though. I really appreciate it. I mean, the idea that you netted out the town some money for the cemetery fund is great, but what you netted out for the town in terms of the presentation of this old cemetery is just fantastic.
Thank you.
This is the one that's up off of
McDowell. So
McDowell,
right on the corner of McDowell and Coles Pond Road, right there, kind of sits on a corner off the 2 roads. So
beautiful work.
Yeah, thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, we have Evan Moline here today as well. He is another really cool community service. Kudos to his volunteer here.
So yeah, my senior project was I got a bear mascot costume for school. So what I why I wanted to do this, oh that's later actually, my bad. So the first thing I did to find this was I looked up a Google search of bear mascot costumes that I could get here on time that was affordable and could reach my goal in a certain amount of time. Mascot weighs about 9 pounds, head about 3 pounds. The actual mascot itself is made out of a thermalite material, so it's cooler on the inside than normal like cotton ones. So the head of it has a fan on the top to keep them in. It's not working. The battery. We can find the battery. Yeah, so it's a little hot in there now, but yeah, when the fan's on, it works pretty well. So the hands and mittens, they just tuck into the arms right there. And when the head goes on, there's little straps that go through the arms, so it stays on your head. And there's a zipper in the back that's covered up by the jersey, so there's no strain on the neck. And the feet, we're gonna honestly, when someone uses this, probably wear shoes because they're a little clunky, a little big, but yeah, I think the costume's pretty comfortable. Why does this relate to me in my life and why I choose this? I've been attending Danville since I was 4 in preschool, and I've always been in athletics. So I wanted to do this as kind of a thank you to Danville and like thank you. So that was a good way to give back to the school for everything it's done to me in athletics. I thought it'd be fun for most students and community members to get into sporting events, and it can also be used during parades or town events or school events, anything like that. What do I have left to do? I have to set up an account for the extra funds that we've got towards this bear, because when we went around, or I got the donations first by local businesses. I think I forgot to mention that, but yeah, we raised a ton of money towards it. So with the extra funds, we're gonna make an account, hopefully, to get more accessories or repairs if we have to.
Or a battery.
We got a jersey on it. We've got a banner actually ordered and it's coming soon, hopefully. I'm currently sending out thank you cards to the businesses involved and still have to plan out who's gonna wear it. Maybe I think just volunteer. Not really sure how we're gonna do that. But.
Not your mom.
Yeah, I think she's all right. I mean,
Maybe for winter sports.
yeah. What have I learned? Community is very generous with donations. People are excited for this bear mascot to come and feel like it's a long time coming with the school. And also how to deal with stress better with big projects like this. Yeah, that's really it. My greatest accomplishment, I thought it was just getting the mascot itself. I mean, with going to local businesses, getting the donations, finding it, getting the right suit itself. The delivery, we had problems delivering it here. They shipped it out to Virginia, I think, at one point. So
Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they got it here. So yeah. And then these are the businesses and individuals that made donations towards the mascot costume, and I'm currently sending out thank you letters to. And that's my senior project. Do you have any questions?
We rolled it out to the kids at Spring Fling in different parts of the building, and they loved it. So thank you. I mean, yeah, it has been a long time coming.
Thank you, yes, for sure. This is one of those things where what we were looking to embrace a new mascot, have a mascot for the younger kids to see. There's something to a fun aspect of it when we change up a mascot. So we needed this. So thank you.
When I was looking for a mascot, I wanted it to look playful enough for the kids, but also like maybe during sports to look menacing or something like that. So yeah, put a little bit of fear in there.
That's a nice bear. That's a nice bear.
I thought it turned out perfect.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I think so too. Very
Appreciate your effort.
Yeah.
That you can flip like
Take your mom
that.
ice cream.
Yeah.
You're free to go. You're free to go.
All right, good night. Thanks, God.
So is the mascot actually going to stay in Danville?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah, so it stays here and we'll have to just figure out.
No,
No, it means like does he own it or do we own it?
yeah, no.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the school owns it.
Candles.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we have to figure out who's.
Well, the other guy's not taking the fence back
Well,
either.
well, I mean, usually with those, like you would, it's like part of the cheerleading squad, but we don't have a cheerleading
What's his last name?
McReynolds.
Like the road.
Yeah.
Right, that was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing them in. No space. All right, first page here. And so we'll move down the agenda. We'll pass that. We're going to move down to the May 7th minutes. Now we have a little report here with the May 7th minutes. There were 3 of us here. One of the 3 of us that was here is not currently here, is on the way. And so I'm going to ask if you guys reviewed the minutes. Molly wrote the minutes. I reviewed the minutes before. If she thinks the minutes are good enough to post, I think the minutes are good enough to post. And what I'm going to ask is if by our collective consensus, we can post those minutes since we don't have the correct number of voters to vote. And if we can, if you all agree, we can move on. Or if you don't disagree. If you don't audibly disagree, then that means you agree. In which case we can move on. So,
Sounds great. Move on.
by consent.
I'm
sorry to have innocent. I'm not that sorry. Innocent, exciting. They're all exciting now. So you're going to catch a new one. Okay, up next we have the superintendent's report. And do you want to explain the yield again, or do you want to go through that one last time in your last annual meeting?
Sure. So you see this in the tax impact chart that we present. The yield rate is set by the tax department initially on December 1st, each year in advance of the budget cycle for the upcoming fiscal year. In normal years, back when we had normal years, they would set a yield rate in December. And then when the legislature was getting ready to adjourn, they would pass what was called a yield bill. And it's typically like 2 pages where they set the final yield rate. So what the yield rate refers to is basically what $1 in homestead taxes raises or returns from the education fund. Okay, so when we talk about, I think what we passed for Danville, we weren't at 97.75. I don't remember what it was lower than that. It's changed 4 or 5 times. So,
most years you see one number and then at the end you see the final number.
Right, and typically it would go up because at the end of it, once they see most of the budgets passed and they realize that there's more money in the ed fund, they'll raise the yield rates. And the effect of that is that the town will pass a school budget, and when the tax bill comes out, it's at a lower rate because of raising it. This year, it has gone up some, and right now, the yield bill that was passed at the end of the session, it's at 98.83. But in the confusion, I don't know what the right word is for what happened in this legislative session, but
chaos.
Yeah, chaos, that's a good word. So the legislature, starting in the House, decided to use a yield bill as a vehicle to try to push through a whole bunch of different changes in their finance. And there were things put into it and things taken out. And at the end of the session, they passed the yield bill. It was passed in the House, it was sent to the Senate. The Senate agreed to it. They agreed on what was going to remain in the yield bill itself. But right now, it has not been signed by the governor, and it's not gone into effect. And my understanding is that the politics behind that is the legislature hasn't even sent it to the governor's desk because they're waiting. They've already set a veto session for June 17th, I believe it is. They're going to come back into session the 17th and 18th and deal with any vetoes. This is our current governor has vetoed more bills than any governor in the history of Vermont. So he's already vetoed some things. And what I'm told from a political perspective is they're waiting till the last minute so that there isn't a lot of opportunity to gin up opposition going into the veto session because they're not sure that they have the votes to override veto. It's also not certain that the governor is going to veto it, but there's a lot of politics going on. There are some things I wrote about what's in it. There was one thing in particular that I don't understand about delegating responsibility for calculating tax rates back to the tax department. I can't get my head around that. I haven't had time to talk to anybody who could probably explain it to me. So that's still in the air. If the bill is signed or it's vetoed and overridden, the yield rate will be higher than what was in effect when the school budget was passed and the voters in Danville, the residents in Danville see a slightly lower tax bill as a result.
So do we know what happens if they don't?
So
That's just like,
if the governor, so the governor always has a choice. He can sign a bill, he can veto a bill, or he can allow it to go into effect without a signature.
right,
So there's 3 ways. If he vetoes the bill, then the legislature will have an opportunity. They'll count noses and see if they have enough votes to override. And if it requires 2/3 in both of the houses, in the House and the Senate. If they can't override the veto, then they're going to have to negotiate. And my understanding is that it's not, the governor's issue is not around the yield, the dollar yield rate itself, but around things that he wanted to see left in the yield bill that were taken out. So we have to have a yield bill, and so there will be some negotiation, and how that's going to go.
yeah, I was wondering if there's sort of because of Act 127, the yield from last year is significantly higher than what the yield for this year.
Yeah, it's not going to go back to that level.
So if we don't pass it, falls back to last year.
That was like
No.
the COVID money that got rolled in to bring down the rates.
COVID money and, you know, big returns from the sales and use tax during the pandemic, and that money's dried up. They did put a couple of things into the yield bill that I didn't put in the written report to add some one-time revenues into the ed fund for this year, and that's where most of the increase in the yield rate is coming from in the bill that they finally have. But there is going to be there are a lot of things in the works. Some study committees to look at different ways to fund education in Vermont. There's no telling what's going to come out of that. And, you know, one of my concerns, or one of the concerns that you should have going into the next budget cycle is that the legislature is always out of sync with the school budget process. So they could be sitting there in March, April, making significant changes to the ed finance system, and hopefully they would be forward-looking and not put them in effect for FY26. But I think there's going to be, my sense is that there's going to be a lot of the same uncertainty that we had this year. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen, what's the legislature going to do. A lot of the work in the yield bill was going on behind closed doors in House Ways and Means, and they weren't even holding, you know, like public sessions on their discussions. And then they sent a bunch of stuff out, and everybody like threw up in their mouths and said, this is not going to work. So they took some things out. But it's been a hard bill to track because there were things in, things out, and new things in, and those things came out, and it's been back and forth. But I think my sense is that it's a consequence of the angst that was stirred up back in December when the governor said everybody's property taxes are going up 20% or 18% or whatever he said. School spending is going to go up 15, 18%. None of that was true for Danville or any of the other districts in CCSU except for Cabot. Cabot's an extraordinary situation because they have some deficits that they have to take care of. We'll see.
Do you have any idea? I can't wrap my head around what is in this bill regarding the CLA and the application of it, because it said it had a change in how the CLA was applied.
Yeah.
And when you read through what has changed, it doesn't really give any.
It doesn't explain that. Yeah.
It says those words in a row, and then it doesn't give you an explanation of what they mean.
Some of the things that they said that are in this bill are things that are being farmed out to one of these commissions or committees that they're going to form to work out the details. So that's a familiar trick in the legislature when they can't figure something out. Is they'll create a study committee, or they'll farm it out, or they'll tell the agency of education to go figure it out. And historically, over the last few years, the agency's not been good about meeting the legislature's deadlines on work that's assigned to them. So I think that some of those things, Clayton, are probably ideas that are going to be explored by this commission or committee or whatever that's going to form. Once the bill's signed, it's supposed to put that committee together starting in July, but starting on 4th of June.
The chances are we find out what how the CLA affected the day with the CLA, which we're going to be back.
Well, the only thing I can think of, I don't know what they can do. They're not going to eliminate. I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, we're going to get rid of the CLA factor in tax rate." But I think it may be more behind the scenes in terms of what they factor in when they calculate the CLA. Let's see.
Yeah, one version I read, I don't know which one it was like an average. So it's not so drastic throughout the state, all the different ones that we have that would be using for consistency, like an average versus we each have our own that we're using that's drastically different. Again, I don't know which version that may have been the House bill. I don't know where it's at now, but
that was, I remember that was in there at one point,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you for sure that it's still in there.
yeah,
Or that may be, I think that, I suspect that there's a list of things that the legislature is going to hand to this committee when it's formed and say, look at all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that may be, that may be one of the things that they're going to try to flesh out. I don't really know. I was thinking about it when it first came up about, well, was that really fair? Because if they do, how are they going to deal with the fact that some communities have kept up with their reappraisals recently?
right.
And are they going to be penalized by having a lower, if the average is dragged
Right.
down by communities, like not to pick on anybody in particular, but Plainfield has not, they're down like down to 60%.
Right. If you're investing in doing that, and
Right.
you're paying for it.
And then are you going to be penalized because of some average? Or,
Right.
but then they'll probably try to weight it in some way and they'll get it, it'll move from arithmetic to algebra to calculus pretty quickly. And there'll be 5 people in the whole state that will understand it and nobody will like it. That's my prediction, but it's hard to know. They've spent a lot of time on this bill in the legislature at the expense of working on some other things. The other thing that I just got this afternoon, and did you get the email from Dave Epstein about the construction bill? So H871, he signed it, the governor signed it into law yesterday. There's a summary of it that Dave Epstein is one of the principals at George Stone. So, and he's on a school construction task force that was formed last year. He was assigned to that by the governor. So the highlights that he shared here: creation of a facilities master plan grant program, but that is in the form of a direction to AOE to create a program. So we don't know what that's going to look like. Pre-qualification of architects and engineering consultants. And AOE's been directed to work with Department of Buildings and General Services to develop criteria. That's something that will help the contractors and the architects to not have to, they get pre-qualified and then you have to do it on a project by project basis. Creation of a state aid for school construction working group is going to continue to look at where's the money going to come from. Study and design a plan for a statewide school construction aid program. Secretary of Education, 3 senators, 3 reps. Small committee. And report to the legislature by December 15th. They didn't allocate any money to pay consultants to help them with work, so they put good people on it. And then the other thing is they raised the construction contract threshold for pre-qualification of contractors and construction managers to $2 million. I don't know what that means. You know, Eric, you have any idea what the pre-qualification threshold would be?
Not specifically on.
I'm guessing that it means that for projects under $2 million, you don't have to pre-qualify your contract. The limit used to be 500,000,
Yeah.
which is a pretty small number in today's construction market. So I think that's what it probably is. That's an educated.
Yeah, I don't know what goes into permitting school construction and stuff, but
yeah, well, I don't think a lot of people know because we haven't done it much. Right? Anywhere. I mean, I think Trex Cullen has done probably the most school construction projects in the state over the last 5 or 10 years. So they've got expertise internally. But, if you move outside of that business realm, I don't know where the expertise lies. So that's longer than what I wrote. But,
All right. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Motion or anything else? Not your last meeting in the Danville library, so we're going to go on for I'll get you in June. I'll get you with the CCS meeting. Move on. Principals. You want to tell us about your hires? I was excited to see these hires.
Oh, yeah.
Inform the board about your hires.
Yeah.
Maybe also your open position.
I honestly couldn't remember if we had put Malcolm Feeney in there before, when, I don't know. Maybe not, I guess. So
no.
I'm glad he's in there. So middle school English, he had come on as a long-term sub this winter, spring-ish, and applied for the full-time position for next school year. And so we hired Malcolm. He's going to be great. He formerly worked here as a special educator, aware, and left for a year and is now back. So we're psyched to have him on the team. He's a great addition. He's going to do really well in that English role. And then James Hughes is coming to us new, straight out of school, but not his first career. So this is really cool. He's a history expert. So he is a true historian and has a deep, deep passion for history and incredible depth of knowledge and a really nice way of connecting with kids. He was one of our final 2 candidates and came and taught a class, just diving into working with 7th graders who we've never met before. And they left with a really positive impression. And we did too. So we're thrilled to have him come on board. And then I'm not going to do well with her last name, but Madison Clarkson is joining us for our high school PE, middle school, high school health position. She's coming out of Norwich, has a great experience with training and strength and conditioning, working as an assistant coach there. And so this is her first foray into teaching, but we think that her real world skills in this area really be awesome. And I also think it's great to have a woman in this role and a woman example for our students. So she did a sample lesson as well for us.
Yes.
She's local.
Yeah.
Local to.
I don't know if she did. I think her family did.
Okay.
Like her.
Yeah. So she had a great lesson. Again, connected really well with kids. So both James and Mackie are new to teaching, but I think they have that inherent ability to just make relationships and find connections with kids, and that's the most important thing right off the bat. So I'm really excited for both of them to be joining the team, and we have mentors already set up for them. And Mackie came in yesterday, and James is coming in Friday. So trying to really get them oriented and set up to start.
And so the middle school social studies teacher replaces.
Replaces Lexi Drew.
Which one? Thank you for Lexi.
Yeah, we're moving on to other endeavors inside of education right now.
I think that the PE teachers in noteworthy retirement, like to pass along some thanks too.
Yeah, very much so. So Guy Pierce is retiring after about 30 years.
He's 30 something years in education. He said he's going to travel. And I asked his wife in the grocery store, "Are you going to go with him?" And she said, "No." And so
where's he going?
You're going to stay home.
I'll go with him.
He was going to go bear hunting in Colorado with his friend, or deer hunting or something. Or camping, have a time. I saw her in the grocery store. I said, "You're going to go on these trips with him?" She said, "No." I said, "Great.
Well,
I can understand that. The house to yourself. It's the best vacation in the world."
They have a child on the West
That's what she wanted.
Who's about a year old.
Yeah, when I was talking to her, the grandson was here, and so they had the grandson in the town, and so she was talking to the grandson. We thank them both for she passed through here for a couple of years as well, and we thank them for their efforts.
Yeah.
And Guy for his long-time efforts.
Yeah.
You should officially thank Mark too.
We can. He's got another meeting in Danville School.
We did our meeting with Mark. We're not gonna have another one with him. So officially, well, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Everything's done. Long going on.
Certainly, not one single normal year. Not one single thing where everything went smoothly. Not one, it was a challenge.
Yeah, I think this spring from January on has been maybe the most challenging in a way because there's so much uncertainty around the most important thing. I think, I don't know, there's no such thing as the most important thing, but getting school budgets passed in 5 districts is a big deal. And it's been a slog this year. And when I go home from this meeting, I'll be sitting on my couch biting my nails waiting to find out if Bloomfield passed their budget on a revote. It's so bored. It's like, come on, so.
And all right, I won't say anything. But your first year, boy, you really filled a big hole, and it was just the school and the supervisory union was in turmoil, and that was fantastic. The way that you kept things together and stuff like that. So from being from the previous administration, thank you. You did a lot.
It's where you pick your spots. In those initial meetings where we were sitting with the teachers in rooms, that the teachers come and tell me what's wrong in front of everybody else, so we know it, so we can fix it.
Yeah.
And we sat in those rooms, sat in Walden, we sat in Barnet, sat together as a new board member at the time, and just sat there and just keep telling me so we could fix it. And it was a lengthy process of getting through things and to get a bunch of grievances dropped and a bunch of things that were going on. And it was really impressive. And then to roll straight from that into the next thing and the next thing, and then to ride us through COVID was really, really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And like to continue with the message and to just hold firm and make sure that you supported your staff was very, very valuable. And everybody could feel it. Is that they somebody was behind them, letting them operate the building and letting keep the building open. And we kept our buildings open.
We did.
And very, very
much better.
And that was probably your finest hour.
Thanks.
And as a parent too, I was on the other side at that point. I wasn't on the school board, but it felt like we were getting informed and we had leadership through that, which I think other schools, if they had, if they disagreed, then
somebody was fighting the battles.
Yeah,
like
we knew you were out there.
We could see you.
Well, that fed right into like my passion because it gave me a lot of things to write about.
Yeah,
it was something like 50 or 60 newsletters just during the pandemic, and yeah. So anyway, thank you.
You're gonna get it again in 2 weeks from me. So,
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So, not that it's Danville school board business, but I do want to share that the leadership team. I get choked up about it. They got me 2 tickets for a Red Sox game at Fenway on July 10th, and an overnight stay at the Commonwealth Hotel, which is like, you can almost throw a rock at Fenway Park. Wow. And that was it, and they gave it. And I'm in the process of finding out if my wife really wants to go because my brother would go. So my combination.
You've heard that you're going to like a spa or something,
yeah,
right?
No, I want to take her down to Fenway Park because she's heard me talk about it. And she's never been. She grew up in New York. She's I'm not a Red Sox fan. You don't have to be a Red Sox fan to enjoy Fenway Park. They're really thoughtful.
I've seen more hockey games than baseball games. It's
great
every time.
I lived right next door to the park.
Oh, you did?
They won the 2004.
Yeah. Oh,
it was like the SWAT team was out. Boylston was shut down. And I could hear the stadium, and then it was a really cool experience to be there, to live like
right there.
Throw a rock over there.
Yeah. I haven't been in Fenway since opening day 2019 when they had the ring ceremony after the.
Oh, it's a good journey to get back.
Yeah, so it's been a while. I've been able to.
That'll be fun.
All right. So to get back on track, we have open positions yet? You want to tell us what those are?
So we have more open positions than what is on here based on some support staff positions. So we've got both of our 3rd grade teachers are moving on. Emily DeMars and Emma Taylor both been fantastic additions. Be here 7 and 6 years. So they've been fantastic rocks in our elementary, and they are going closer to home in Vermont, and one's moving. So yeah, so it's very sad, but also wishing the best for both of them. So we have an open 3rd grade position, and then we will shift one of those positions to follow a really big bubble class up into 5th and 6th grade, and that is, kind of to tie that back into our building stuff. It's really a spacing problem. I have teachers, but I don't have enough space in classrooms to hold groups of 17, 18 kids, 18, 19. No, like 18, 19, sorry, 19. That. So instead, the groups would be closer to like 16 with a big bubble class and smaller for the 5th grader. And then we've got a few support staff that are going to be moving in positions that we found out their contracts were due last Saturday on Friday. So a few of those.
So one of the 3rd grade positions will move up with 5, 6 or saying to follow that group.
So there'll be 4, 5, 6 teachers?
And then only how many 3rd grade teachers?
No.
we'll do the multi-age that we've
Oh,
been,
right,
that we've
the
been doing.
combo, okay.
So yeah, the 3, 4, and 4.
Yeah.
So 3. Now, both those ladies, they started teaching. That was their
They
first
did,
teaching job.
yep,
So
yep. Their first place, so.
take all the credit for that. They're good teachers, and they live here.
It's
So
big,
take all the
it's
credit
big
for
to
that.
move on, and it's nice to move on when you're leaving a school on a good term, but it also.
Well, that's a big favor to do to new teachers. It's sort of in a good supportive environment and let them kind of grow into it.
And blossom and grow, and they both do.
Paying it forward to somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. Student services report as well. We have, if you have any questions about the student services report, looks like we have some turn over there as well. Somebody stepping up into another chair. And that seems to be the theme around here is that people move on, people move up. And that's great. All right, any questions for Mark about the student services report or the principals at the end? If not, we can move on to the board business for tonight.
She is actually going to be done on the 19th because she has unused vacation.
Okay.
So she's going to take some vacation back and she'll start right off July 1st. Her new gig.
And Vanessa is gone.
June 30th.
Just gonna look through that, probably till 9 o'clock on June 30th.
If possible.
Just to catch up.
I told her, I said, you can't go until you get all your.
All right, so if we move on to board business, we talked about in the last month's meeting, the fee structure for non-Danville students and athletics, and the board members that were here, we talked about moving it up to an SU level, and the recommendation from the athletic director, and then the administration was that this could be a Danville only policy, a Danville only procedure that we could enact, and we could simply bill the people that use our facilities and use our coaches and use our staffing for the services at a low number, and the numbers discussed in here, and it wouldn't have to be a CCSU policy. We could just enact it. So this was written up for you in your packet, and if you guys have any questions, if you missed, if you have any questions about it, let me know. Yeah, I'm letting you know, obviously. Now it's time to let me know.
Just to clarify, to make sure I understand, so the high school programs,
I'll run back.
Randy just divvied that up internally, is what my understanding of that is.
Because they're cooperative and because we share athletic directors, there was no need to pull money or to solicit money or to change money back and forth, despite the fact that situation exists in between some other schools. Because there's so much collaborative stuff, there was no need for that to be an action item where it needed to happen. So where this really only affected us was, and again, it didn't affect us in the K2 skills program, because we'd be doing those anyway, and there's no real change to having extra kids there. Only in the 3 through 8 program for their uniforms, for their referees, for their coaches, or their expenses for fields and everything, was there the expense that we could justify charging this fee. And to clarify, just to make sure the fee does not go to parents, and the fee cannot be charged to parents. The fee goes to the school district the child comes from. And Mark was going to take this around to, maybe not get back to teach him to take it back to him, but tell him.
I think that my plan for, because I've been thinking about this. You have every right to put this, it's a reasonable fee structure. And I'm just going to inform them that, and it's not going to break anybody's bank. We're not talking about dozens and dozens of kids that come over and compete for them environment. And those are primarily where kids are.
I mean, so 6 kids is $300. I mean, it's
not, they have money in their athletics.
For the season, for the whole season.
So,
and the expense goes to the
school,
and they help pay for the 2 reps, the 3 reps that they get. The reps were $57 or $90 or $118 paying age.
And Waterford already does this with whichever Kingdom.
Right, they have an arrangement with Kingdom East and.
Yeah.
That's where the number came from in the proposal. That's where the $35 number came from.
So nobody's going to get broke and nobody's going to get rich.
But what they've done, it makes it easier to explain to the community why the teaching kids are here.
And just to compare, to participate in some St. J rec programs that they're $100 to $120 that we pay to do that. So it's not like this is unreasonable at all.
But it's also an inexpensive way for people who couldn't afford to join an AAU team or a club team or whatever team to participate in sports that the school can help them with out of the town budgets, which is really what they're for. So I think it's very good. And it might allow us to find some other kids that don't, that don't participate. I don't know. So this is an action item tonight. We discussed it last time. We just decided that we keep this local, it's gonna be a local policy. And so to move along, I'd be looking for action on this. I'd be looking to approve this fee structure for athletics.
Make a motion
Thanks, sir.
to approve a participation charge of $75 per athlete per season.
So for Danville 3 through 8 programs.
Right. Yep, 3 through 8 programs.
Okay. All right. I have a motion to approve this fee structure for the non-Danville students. A second from Tim. I have a motion and a second to approve this fee structure. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the fee structure for non-Danville students to participate in Danville sports, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, folks. Right, next on our list is a Brainerd Fund request. And the Brainerd Fund request to include this library, which is great because this library can use some more. And library became last year a second classroom for a while, and it's got a lot of additional functions. But I've been looking at these bookshelves for 12, 13 years, and they were 20 years old when I started looking at them. And I've picked them up when they fall down, and I look for hooks on the ground to put them back together. I've seen this current librarian cull books as many as she could. They were old to keep her library fresh and still have space concerns and still have quality concerns with shelving. So do you want to tell me again?
So Lydia, also a little library plug. Lydia put together a fantastic set of resources on our Facebook and Instagram page if you haven't got that for kids for summer. But so she like Clayton said, is really working to make this a visually appealing place for kids that they want to go find books and they can easily access books. So the shelving kind of on this side of the room is doesn't need to be replaced. She's looking at those 4 high, and then it continues to wrap around with the 8. Some of them are lower shelving, you can send them all the way up, and then she wants a display of books that are the current books that the 3rd through 6th graders can come in and see and just grab them off the shelf and be able to engage them quickly. So she found all of the pieces that she needs. She needs 8 shelves. And the starter shelf is, but like how it fits. And then that's I think it is. That's what I read it does too. And then that display table that she was hoping to get to really help with some of that. A lot of those books will stay there. Some of that she wants to donate to the Historical Society and stuff. There's a lot of cool newspaper clippings that are fantastic that don't get access here. So we want to give them a place where they can get used more.
How much is in the Brainerd Fund?
We were just discussing that.
60?
Yeah, we spent 21,000. We had about 80,000.
So we had 79,000 and we spent 21,000 last year to do some of this work already. And so this is an additional 13,053.97.
So Charles Brainerd helped fund is a little library at Joe's Pond. There's a Brainerd library in North Danville. And so these funds are just perfect for this purpose. And I'd like to see something that said, just acknowledging that it came from the Brainerd Fund or something like that.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Dave?
Yeah. Encouraging other people's giving down.
Yeah. Huh? I think we can do that.
You guys will just pick that, right?
But yeah, you give that to Rachel Keach and then have a kid make it.
Yeah, make it on one of the
Yeah.
What are you planning on doing with the old shelves?
Most of them are
Can they maybe donate it to another school?
No, they are,
No, they're,
they come out there. They're, well, I think when you leave them, they're gonna.
Well, I can't take.
no, those aren't real library books. No,
No.
they went cheap.
All right,
I will make a motion to approve the Brainerd fund request.
motion for the Brainerd Fund request in total of $13053.97. I have a second for that same motion to approve library shelving. What's the number?
Yeah, there's two different numbers.
13,453.
There's two different numbers, one on the shopping cart and
The overall number, the cart total says 1305397. That's the
This
one I'm
one's,
looking at.
this one's,
I'm gonna say not to exceed 13,100.
Okay, not to exceed 13,100. Okay.
Which does not.
I think one of them includes shipping and one of them doesn't.
Right, either.
We have no idea.
The one I'm looking at is 13,077 minus the contract discount plus a shipping charge, and it pays
And-
13,000.
And it's been a week since
Yeah.
they put it in, so it might.
$13,100 from the Brainerd Fund for the purchase of library shelving to renovate the library to a small degree. I have a motion.
so
I have a second over here. I had a second already. I have a third. Oop. I have a second. This from Eric. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this Brainerd Fund request for $13,100, not to exceed, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Have some meeting planning next. You have on your schedule now, this is meeting planning separate from the meeting planning, a building committee meeting on next Thursday at 6 o'clock plan. That should already be on your schedule, and that one's gonna go. And that one's gonna have a lot of information at it. The small group has met in the meantime twice with small and then even smaller actually. Small group met once with Truex Collins, and we looked at some additional information. We looked at some of what we were seeking from them, which was a $10 million option, a $20 million option, and an advanced option from that. We looked over some numbers at that first one and then sent back some stuff. Engineers came, met with the principals, engineers. Somebody came, met with the principals.
Yeah, Cam did.
Cam himself did a walkthrough and talked about building space. And so there are 3 options that we're going to look at to present with numbers and the breakdown of the numbers at the meeting on June 13th. So we'll have some documents for you in advance of that meeting, and those documents will become public, and we'll be back in the newspaper not long after that.
And
So-
the swap idea is not one of those, right?
The what?
Swapping high school with.
No, that we're not fleshed out to that degree yet. What we have now is monetary proposals and some dollar amounts, and but we're not anywhere to the design phase. So we're simply to look at some of the options for where we stand now. But in terms of any of that happens, we can discuss it then. But it's not. And Cam will be there at this meeting to talk to you about it, so you can ask that question then. But it's not, that hasn't been fleshed. We haven't fleshed quite that
I
far
was
yet.
just wondering, there were emails, we were emailed about it, and we said we was gonna look at the estimate for that, and I didn't know where that was standing.
Right, so that's a question for Cam on Thursday, rather than for me, because he didn't
But
tell
you
me.
mentioned it at that other meeting you went to that before that.
The one on, that was last,
Sarah and I couldn't.
it was last Monday night that you could, the small group, and you couldn't attend,
Yeah.
and so it was the even smaller small group. And it was just a brief meeting of the superintendent, Cam, I think Sarah for like 5 minutes.
I was there.
Natalie was there the whole time,
Yeah.
and myself, just to discuss the options and to finalize this stuff to make the paperwork public. But he didn't go into great detail about that.
Okay.
But there are about that specific thing, but there are great details, as you saw in the first one, that we're gonna make public.
Right.
And we'll probably do that in 501, although we'll see what kind of traffic we get. We'll talk about some later. And so the brief synopsis is we're going to have new numbers, we're going to have options to look at, and we have a greater detailed breakdown to be more clear about what we're looking for. That this is still prior to the design phase, and this is part of the true expo action we're moving on. So the building committee meeting is on, and I'll let the building committee know tonight in an email that we're keeping that meeting on and that they should come.
Is Brandon over there? Oh, sorry,
Brandon?
Our friend. Yeah, he's on the committee by default. I can probably invite him.
Does he know he's on it?
He doesn't know. You don't get to know. We put Natalie on it. We told Natalie she was on it as part of
Brandon will come.
Part of the gig. So it might be beneficial for him to come in. So we'll tell Brendan to come in as well.
I keep updating our site. I don't know if anybody looks at it, but.
If it had a little count, at the bottom, it would just say you again, Molly. You again, Molly. You
But
again,
then there'll
Molly.
be that one person that if I ever don't update it, I will say, this wasn't updated, I didn't know about the.
Yeah, no part. Yeah, they'll let you know.
So that's that one. And then I have some further meeting planning to tell you about when I get to the future agenda items and meeting planning. But prior to that, is there any public input?
No, Katie White was on for a few minutes.
Was she on for majority of the meeting or?
She
left right after the sports feed was done.
Okay, I'll listen to her.
So that's when I noticed she was gone. I didn't have
baby.
Okay.
Yeah, Brandon.
I have a sports score, if you're interested, the Cabot Twinfield Danville softball
Yes, I am.
team beat Craftsburg tonight. Matt Foster's school.
For the first, so this is the first level of playoffs, and they just lost to Craftsbury last week.
Yeah.
So.
They beat them at Craftsburg tonight.
Yeah, very cool.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right, so
So
no
then they
public
play
input.
again Friday, I think.
What seed are they?
Not
Not
high.
high.
Their start of their season was rocky, and then they improved a lot. So
Very young team, a lot of
I can
players that are new to the game.
Sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And hopefully they're, younger players that will stick with it. If they have a good
Nice.
experience this year, they'll want to come back. Hopefully.
I don't think so. All right, so no public input. Future agenda items. We are going to have to meet in July, as discussed, because we need to talk about hiring. We need to have a meeting set to talk about hiring, have open positions. The superintendent's, the board chair / superintendent hiring authority that goes on now that made these 3 hires that we talked about ends at the end of Mark's tenure. And so we're going to have to meet on the first Tuesday rather of July, which is July the 2nd. We'll be meeting at a minimum to start working with Matt Foster and the assistant superintendent,
Mike
Moriarty. And then we'll want to go ahead and get started on that. So put that meeting on your agenda and keep it there on your schedule and keep it there. And so for agenda items, we're going to 17
July 2nd.
July 2nd. So we're going to talk about hiring will be the one thing that will be on our agenda.
That will probably be virtual.
So the virtual attendance is attendance in the summer, especially. Perfectly fine, as long as Matt knows how to run it.
You can't, starting July 1st, you can't do remote only. You have to have.
I'll be sitting here. Don't worry. I'll be sitting here.
All right.
I will sit here, but remote attendance is attendance for everybody else.
Yeah.
And all the state laws expire. Have to have somebody in attendance. If that's written about. And the thing is, I can be at the today. Since I got to sit in the library myself, you guys are. So feel free to come. Okay. Right around the corner.
Can I put in a request for an item since we went to graduation and stuff? It'd be great to get stats on what the kids are doing after graduation.
We just talked about that tonight.
Okay, yeah, so how many are going to college? How many are going to the workforce? Yeah, what's that'd be really wonderful to sort of get.
So can you put that in as part of your reporting? We'll put that in as part of.
Do you want it July?
You're the principals.
We don't usually do it. That's why I'm asking.
Well, we don't usually have a meeting either.
I know
So we don't usually have a
we
meeting.
don't usually do one.
So it would. So
Okay.
brief report. This is a thing about when you report
That's
some
fine.
stats.
It's July, I believe it's great.
Oh. So there's that. I also I finalized. I talked to you guys about this briefly. I'm finalizing the retreat for the CCSU, the entire board of CCSU, and so July the 20th is a Saturday afternoon. Coming in Saturday afternoon for a learning session with Harry Frank from Up With Learning is going to mediate a session with the new administrators, and I'm going to have to go to all the boards and tell them to come. This is a chance to work with your superintendent, your incoming superintendent, and your incoming assistant superintendent to get started, so that we can all develop relationships. There'll be lunch. I haven't figured out yet. starting at 1 on July the 20th. And it is a retreat and it's training.
Starting at 1 afternoon. That's,
No.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna be driving there.
It's what?
Time of year.
It's entirely, yeah, but we gotta get started. At the same time, we gotta get started. And if you can't come, you can't come. But if you can come, we're gonna be working with these people for at least the duration of whatever this year is, and hopefully for several years with these people as they learn to do their jobs that neither one of them has had it before. And so we need to be able to support them, but also able to make sure that we can get out of the way. And that's a lot of what the training is about. So 7:20 on that one. Put it on even if you don't, if you can't attend.
What was start?
1 o'clock. Probably 1 o'clock. We're gonna walk in. You're gonna grab a box of lunch, and then you're gonna sit down, eat for a while, and then we'll get to work.
If our board can't make it, or some of us aren't there, will there be a time for us to talk with them about just goals for Danville and kind of strategizing?
July the 20th. That's when you should come.
What if people can't make it? I mean,
July the 2nd. July the 2nd. We're having a meeting.
I'm just saying, I think it's important to have that discussion, and I don't know if we aren't there, just us as a group.
We can.
Do you need a quorum?
I don't have I don't need a quorum of anybody because it's a training.
Good.
And so it's a retreat, it's a training, so I don't need a quorum of anybody. I can set up, I can set up a time after that, or if you need to go.
It's not quite the right time for the training to do that. To like
This is a retreat. This is a retreat.
Right.
It's a training to talk about goals and to talk about exactly what we talked about.
but not just for Danville.
For the CCSU.
So if we want to focus on Danville, I think we talked about it in August, and if we feel like we schedule a separate time to come back then.
Yes, we'll just put it, we'll keep it on our agenda to continue the working relationship that's getting started. But I wanted to start at the CCSU level as well and get everybody there to come. Rather, because the CCSU board itself doesn't really have a lot of roles inside the schools as much as everybody in CCSU goes. And I don't want to strain these men to have 6 separate retreats to get to know the board members. So I'm trying to give them an opportunity to get going without having to just continue to have the
put
same
it on
conversation.
our agenda at some point.
So it can be on our August agenda. We can put that on a future agenda item. Is Danville goal setting. If you'd like, happy to do it. But if you can come on July the 20th, that's a good time to get started. That's all I got. And we got anything else for future agenda items for now? Just hiring.
We'll see what comes out of the building committee meeting.
Building committee meeting. We'll see what we get. So the building committee meeting is going to be meeting planning going forward. Many other meetings about, but also numbers. Here we go. And with that, it is 7:07. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Ken makes a motion to adjourn. Got a motion, a second down there. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning at 7:08, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.